The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Hey everyone, welcome to How to Be Fancy. It's been a month since we last chatted about books, and so here we are again today. I'm talking about the books that I've read over the past 30 days. Was not as ambitious as I had been last month, but I did manage to get through a couple and am in the middle of quite a few as well. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood was definitely at the top of my reading list, and so I picked this one up first and foremost. We had talked about reading it together, so let me know down below if you managed to grab this and read it as well. I just saw that libraries across the United States are on it, like there's a wait list to check this book out. So fortunately, I had this on hand. I found this beautiful cover from the Book Depository. It's the UK edition, and I think it is like such a cool cover. But let's talk about what's inside. This is the tale of Offred. She is a handmaid in the Republic of Gilead. Essentially, it is a post-apocalyptic society in which women have very specific gender-based roles in that society. They're highly oppressed. They are there to repopulate the planet and to serve the nation in a very specific ways. And if they aren't able to do that, then they are cast out of the communities and out of the safety of the city. So much of this book is chilling in that it is based in a lot of realities that face women across the globe. I recently read an article by Margaret Atwood. She's getting a lot of airtime since this is actually being made into, I think, a Hulu series. I'm not sure. I think it's Hulu. But she said that all of the kind of story and detail of the book came from actual society and cultural experiences that women across the world have, and so that's all included in here. It's just all lumped into one society, which makes it absolutely terrifying. I think one thing that Margaret Atwood nails in this book is that even though this is such a disheartening and depressing sort of read, there still manages to be these lighthearted moments, and she still manages to make even the bad guys, you sort of can understand how they came to this place, even though you're wildly averse to it and you're wondering how on earth we could have landed here. You can kind of see the thread that brought everyone to this point. It's a clever book, and there are parts of this that I absolutely loved. I loved the very, very end. I won't give it away. I think it ended in a way that reminded me a little bit of The Diary of Anne Frank, and so I'll leave that to you to kind of uncover. But if you read it, let me know down below what you think of The Handmaid's Tale. So if you've got Amazon Prime, you get access to, I think they're called first looks or first reads, something like that. Essentially every month you kind of get to pick a free up and coming book that's coming out, which is really handy. I just read it on my Kindle app on my phone. So that's pretty cool. But this month I went back to one I got probably a year ago. It's called The Burn by Annie Oldham, and it's a really interesting story. It's a young adult fiction story. It's a dystopian novel, but it's got some interesting takes in that it's almost like a retelling of The Little Mermaid. So it's got a little bit of that fairy tale element, but it's in this dystopian type world, which sounds kind of amazing, but in reality, it's not that well of a written book. I think this had to have been a debut novel. It's a series. I'll admit I got sucked into the story just enough to go ahead and purchase the rest of the series. I think that cost me a big total of maybe $5, and I thought that was worth it to finish out the story, but it's really not well written, so save yourself the trouble if you haven't already invested the time. So this is my all-time ultimate dilemma, is when a book has a really great plot or a really great premise, and then the writing just isn't up to par. I think that's something that happens in a lot of books. It's probably why I don't write, because when you just can't do justice to the story, it makes it really difficult for a reader to continue reading, and kind of disheartening, I imagine, if you're trying to write this book and you've got this big grand vision and then on paper it just isn't translating. So that is my dilemma. Tell me what you do down below. Do you keep on reading? Do you stop? I tend to give a lot of grace to authors, especially in debut novels, and so let me know what you think down below as far as my ultimate dilemma. For my Audible book this month, I chose one that was exceptionally long, and so I'm about 3/4 of the way through this book, but it is pretty excellent, I have to say. I did not expect much from it. It's called America's First Daughter. It's the story of Patsy, or Martha Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson's daughter. This is a novel. It's based loosely on some of the letters between Thomas Jefferson and his daughter, some of their correspondence, and some of his correspondence, and of course the time period in which they lived. The thing that I found interesting about this is that it's all told from her perspective rather than a founding father's perspective, which is something that we don't often get in regards to early American years. It definitely has its flaws, but I think its flaws actually reflect the time period in which it was set. So there's a lot of talk of freeing slaves and a little bit of touching on the French Revolution and some of the talk about the sparring between Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson. So if you're a fan of Hamilton, I think this would be a really fun read for you because you kind of get the flip side of the story. It doesn't go into detail again because it's his daughter's story, but you do kind of get that daughter's perspective on what's going on with the founding fathers. So if you're a fan of Hamilton, I would say you probably would enjoy this. I love the Audible version. It's narrated by Cassandra Campbell, and she's got this like soft, soothing Southern drawl, which is perfect for what you would expect for the time period. So it makes it really easy to connect to the story, and even though I think it was like 20 something hours long and I still have 8 hours left, it's definitely been worth the kind of long stretch of listening that I've done to get through this far, and definitely doesn't feel like one of those long books that drags on. Even though it's just a narrative, it's not like this action-packed adventure. It's just the story of her life. I feel like the way it's written really carries you through, and especially if you can get the Audible version to have that great narration, it's fantastic. Finally, another book that I talked about reading last month is Dragon Springs Road by Jamie Chang. And I'm about halfway through this one so far. I kind of got distracted by the other books, but I did get a chance to dive into this one in the past week or so. And so we're about halfway through, and I have to say, it is so good. It's not exactly what I expected. So much happens in this book in just short little snippets of time. There's a little bit of mysticism and exploration of religions. There's a lot of meeting between the European and Chinese cultures. Overall, I'm so glad that Christina put this book in Muse Monthly, and I cannot wait to finish it. Now, if you enjoy reading with me this next month, the book on the top of my to-be-read list is The Underground Railroad. I purchased this a long time ago, and I just keep meaning to get to it, and it keeps getting pushed down, but it's being pushed down no further. So this is what we're going to be reading for next month's video. This is by Colson Whitehead. It's won all kinds of fabulous awards. I've heard incredible reviews about this, and so I'm excited to dive into this story. Finally, the other book that I'm hoping to read is February's Muse Monthly book. This is called A Word for Love. It's by Emily Robbins, and it is the story of a Syrian girl, I believe. Let's see, I'll read you a little excerpt. It says, set in Syria on the cusp of unrest, the story of a young woman transformed by a startling new understanding of love. So it sounds really intriguing and timely, and I hope that you will join me in picking this up as well. Let me know down below if you intend on reading either of these books, or if you have read any of the ones that I mentioned before, or just tell me what you're reading. I love to hear book recommendations. I have a huge pile of them, and I go through them as quickly as I possibly can. So I will leave the links for all the books I mentioned down below. If you choose to use those links to purchase a book, I want to say a huge thank you, because anytime you click a link down in the description bar that is an affiliate link, it gives me a couple of pennies, and those pennies help me pay for more books. So thank you guys for always being such kind and gracious internet friends. I hope that you are having a wonderful time reading this month and enjoying your spring. Until next time, I will see you later. Bye-bye.